horror movies. These are films with a frightening storyline or atmosphere. We, that is myself, Smart Alec, and my special guest, Will, the Godzilla fan. Yes, he's back, everyone. Say hello, Will.
Hello, everybody! Let's talk about horror films and how much they shit our pants.
Let me preface this by saying that we both have been long-term horror enthusiasts. William and I have watched many horror films. Far too many. Our souls are as black as obsidian skies, and we have no dreams anymore. We have no nightmares. There is only darkness in our souls.
Yeah, you're right. I've become a blank void
You were always a blank void.
Fuck you.
We're here today to determine the greatest horror movies of all time, in our opinion. The definition of a horror film is a murky one, so we are going to be including certain suspense thrillers if we desire. If you look at the horror films of the 40s and the 30s, and the original horror novels and books, it's that atmosphere that really defines what horror is. And recently, I think that definition's been redefined. But yeah, this horror films to me embody a certain feeling. So, without further ado, let us begin our journey through the most terrifying films of all time.
Well, at my number 5 is Ginger Snaps. So we start off the millennium with a great horror film about werewolves. These two teenagers...
Sorry, what? About what?
Werewolves?
Werewolves.
Werewolves?
Sorry, you just said that really weirdly. Carry on.
Werewolves. Yeah, it's about these teenagers. One of them gets bitten by a werewolf. And I really enjoy it. It's a great...
Well, clearly, because it's on your top 5 list.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great for that type of sort of gothic, adds that mix of gothic and sort of teenage angst. It's pretty much like The Fly with werewolves. There's a because she gradually sort of morphs into this thing. It's not it's not the moonlight shines and she'll turn into a werewolf. It's sort of like gradual turning into a werewolf, and once you're turned into a werewolf, you become a wolf, a mindless animal.
But the werewolf, if I remember correctly, the werewolf side of this film is actually not even that important because it's all an allegory.
Oh yeah, it's all for puberty.
Yeah. I think that's important to bring up because that's the that's
well,
where they
that
emphasize.
is the whole. Yeah, that's the point of the film.
Yeah.
It's all about the teenagers' angst and anxieties from moving from your childhood to adulthood.
What happened to this film? It's completely disappeared. You can't buy it anywhere. You can't watch it anywhere.
Yeah, and there've been no re-releases or anything like that,
It's really
which
weird.
is a real shame because it's a really unique film. It's made on a low budget. Yeah, I think it's really cinematic, and it's just I don't know where it's gone.
Yeah.
And I managed to stumble on this on IMDb of all places, and watched it. Found a copy and watched it.
I watched it on late night television one time, and
I think it's great.
as a teenage boy,
So it certainly works. So my number 5 is Ginger Snaps.
Cool.
Take it away, Al.
Okay, so my number 5, after much deliberation, and this was really a painful choice because my top 4 are pretty much set. But my number 5 is it can depend on my mood, but yeah. My number 5 is Seven, directed by David Fincher, released in 1995. Now, some people might say, oh, but Alec, this is a thriller. Yeah, but it's also a horror film. It has all of the key elements that make up classic horror. Yes, I would say it is also a thriller, but it definitely embodies both genres. So that aside, Seven. It has some magnificent performances, especially from Kevin Spacey, who is a creepy son of a gun in this film. Wouldn't you agree?
Certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the concept. I think that's the key part of this film. I love the idea that you have these 7 deadly sins, murder, these 7 killings. There's a certain artistry to it, as unsettling as that sounds. I mean, you have some horrifying bits with like the guy who's been kept in bed for a year and how he's deteriorated but still alive, and the blade dildo, no, the blade strap on used on the prostitute, and I mean, this is creepy, and it really gets me at the end because it's all off screen, and actually I'm glad they didn't really show it. Even the intro, I love the fact that the intro is sort of strange enough or off center enough that you don't necessarily understand that it's actually part of the story. And then of course Morgan Freeman, the lovable, venerable Morgan Freeman, in a role that actually is outside of his usual remit, I would say. This isn't his normal role, and he did very well. But yeah, my number 5, Seven, absolutely fantastic. Straight, one of my favourite films ever made.
Okay, so number 4, The Innocents, directed by Jack Clayton, released in 1961. So why have I chosen this? The Innocents, for me, when I watch this film, it's a ghost story. And it walks that fine line between suggestion and gets with the power of suggestion, which any sort of good ghost story will have. Also, I think it's got great performances. The gothic, I really like the artistry in the film as well. So you can see the actual surroundings and the locations and stuff slowly and creepily decaying. I think it's a brilliant film.
So
it's been re-released by the BFI, so if you want to go and check it out, it's definitely available for you to go and check out, and I definitely highly recommend it. If you want a ghost story that has a little bit more thought, certainly doesn't rely on any loud bangs or anything like that. The sort of creepy elements from the ghosts and stuff, just seeing imagery or children laughing on a balcony, it leaves a lasting impression. Definitely left a lasting impression on me, and I loved it.
My number 4 is Ridley Scott's 1979 masterpiece, Alien. Alien is Jaws in space, but it's so much more than that. It's an absolute tour de force and masterclass in filmmaking. Right from the very opening, you have brilliant scene setting, you have brilliant characters, you have one of the best female protagonists in any film. Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, is an icon, and she is the standard for which all protagonists should be set to. I just love the interactions with the crew. I love everything about H.R. Giger's atmosphere and creations, the alien itself. I believe that this is the best sci-fi movie cinematic universe, purely for its aesthetic. It's absolutely brilliant. It's horrific. It's alien. One of the best things about it is just how alien it looks. It's not that sort of Roswell or just a very human idea of an alien. H.R. Giger really captures that otherworldliness, and it's got brilliant actors. You got Ian Holm, and
you got John Hurt,
and you got John Hurt. Yeah, it is such a brilliant film. It really is. And the first time you watch it, please, if you haven't seen Alien, do not watch Prometheus first. Do not, because it will ruin one of the best things about this film. The less you know about Alien going in, the better. Because there are scenes in Alien that, once spoiled, really reduces the horror side of the film. Now, I think if you know what's going to happen, or if you know about the spoilers in the film, then it's still a technical masterpiece. and a visual masterpiece. And I don't use those words lightly, as anyone who knows me knows, but I think in this case it's warranted. Yeah, it's just a brilliant film. And if you haven't seen it, it's an excellent horror film. Now, I think after the first time viewing, certain scenes have a bit less power, but it's so well done. It's worth at least 2 watches. And yeah, that's my number 4, Alien. Brilliant.
My number 3 is The Descent, directed by Neil Marshall, released in 2005. Now, when I first saw this, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That opening, though.
The first 40 minutes is a great exercise in just holding back, building the tension, building up the anxieties between the characters and certain issues that are going to come out later on, and then couple that with incredible atmosphere of just claustrophobia. Just
I would say
they
if you're going to
make
sum that film up, that would be the word I'd
yeah,
use.
it's incredibly claustrophobic. And they go into the cave, and once they go into the cave, even before anything happens, it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
Which is it's brilliant. It's brilliantly set up. It's brilliant payoff. It's brilliantly made by Neil Marshall, and yeah, the feeling of claustrophobia is whether you even suffer with claustrophobia or not.
You definitely get
that
feeling.
Horrible feeling, of even just a cave just crushing you and stuff like that. It's brilliantly handled. I have a little bit of claustrophobia as well because I did caving.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
Did you see this film before Caving?
No, I saw it afterwards. But it brought back horrible memories.
I didn't
It
know
brought
this
back
about
horrible
you.
memories.
You didn't
Because
tell
I
me
did.
you were
I have a little
claustrophobic.
bit of a claustrophobia. I have
Oh.
a bit of a claustrophobia myself.
Bless
so
you, Paul.
watching this film, I was going.
It's really interesting that you say that. Actually, because my friend Pat, who's been on the movie trials before, in fact, he did our greatest revenge films list. He has a phobia of hotels, and he loves The Shining, because again, it brings up the same emotions, the same feelings, and it's really interesting that you say that you love The Descent, but you also feel claustrophobia. Maybe there's a pattern here. Maybe that's just, I found that interesting. I thought it was worth bringing up. So, yeah. Why do you like it if it scares you so much? Because every time I tell people
I watch a horror film to be scared, and yeah,
it works.
The Descent does that for me.
My number 3 is James Wan's Saw, released in 2004. This pretty much defined the torture porn subgenre of horror that became popular after this. But Saw is an excellent film. Tiny budget, and to make such an original film on such a tiny budget and actually pull it off in a way that is scary, that is that is timeless, that lasts, I think is commendable. This was an excellent film. Now, a lot of people don't like it, and a lot of people don't watch it because they're like, oh, but it's a gore fest. But actually, it's not. That's the beauty of it. You think it's a gore fest, and in fact, watching it, you think you've watched a gore fest, but it's not. You don't see that much blood. You don't actually see that much. Most of the gory stuff, and gory stuff happens, but it happens just off camera, and that's really smart. And this film scared the shit out of me when I first watched it, and less so now, but I still I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but the payoff in this film is right up there, and it's been sort of parodied almost in every other Saw film that's come since, where they all try and do some like crazy thing at the end. But no, I mean, this is the original. And I put it above Alien, not because it's a better film, but because it's a better horror film. And that's the reason it's my number 3. So my number 3 is Saw. good stuff. Very good stuff. It turns out for the number 2 slot that William and I are in complete agreement. This doesn't often happen. So our number 2 is John Carpenter's 1982 remake, The Thing. Now, William, what do you love about The Thing?
What do I love about it? What is not to love about it? You can trade it's funny because you can trade the sort of Descendants claustrophobia for paranoia.
Yes, so much.
It's got great casting. You've got Kurt Russell, Keith David.
I actually think this is Kurt Russell's defining role.
Yeah,
I know it's not
definitely
his
agree with
iconic role, but to be honest, this is the best acting I've ever seen from him in this film.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would
know if
agree
you
with
agree.
that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
It builds up the paranoia perfectly. The dog bursting scene is great.
Yeah, it really has that strong 80s style. You don't see films made in this style anymore.
Yeah.
That there's so much room to breathe when they're telling this story. It is slow paced, but everything happens for a reason, and there's so much exposition just through visual storytelling. It is creepy, and it builds so much tension, and after several times watching it, you just don't know. You don't know what the outcome of the film is. You don't know who's the thing, who's not the thing. You just don't know who's good and who's bad and who's this alien. And I think one important thing that needs to be brought up is the special effects in the thing.
Yeah, from you saying about the 80s style, but from the special effects, they're all puppets and makeup effects, and it still really holds up well today.
It looks the thing is, it's real. It's obviously not real in the sense that this is a puppet.
Well,
but
it's physically
actually
there.
Yeah, exactly. It's
all
physically there. And it does the craftsmanship to make such a horrifying entity is just scary. And it doesn't matter that it's a puppet. You don't go to a theatre going, oh, these are just actors. It doesn't matter. And it's just top quality horror. It really is. If you go, what are the best horror films ever? I don't think this is something that immediately comes to people's minds. But John Carpenter deserves recognition.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think he makes top quality films that that are interesting and are filled with tension. And it's the way he produces that tension that's most impressive, I think.
Yeah.
The Thing is great. So that's our number 2. You're about to say on record what you think the best horror film ever made is. There are hundreds and hundreds of horror films of all different subgenres. Personal taste is key in this. So, Will, what is your number 1 horror film?
Well, my number 1 horror film, it has to go to Ring. Not The Ring, Ring.
Ringu!
Or Ringu, as it's called in its native language, from Japan. Directed by Hideo Nakata. Released in 1998. I've watched this film. I've watched it numerous times. And it is just incredibly scary. It's such a simplistic idea of you watch the tape, the videotape, and you will die in 7 days. And what I think is great about this is that you get to see how she goes through all of these days just trying to combat against this ominous, incredibly monstrous thing that is coming to kill her. Also, I really like the characters in it. I think it's really well acted. I think just it's drowned in dread, and you're waiting, and you're built to wait. But while you're waiting, there's just this ominous feeling that something is about to just kill you stone dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. Ring really did it for me. The atmosphere is just palpable. There's a sense of dread and unknown quality and mystery as well. It's brilliantly done. I think it's a great film, and I think it's fair to say that I was generally frightened by this. Generally, not many horror films that I watch can bring that out, and I think Ring is one of the few films that, I look at the certificate and thought, really? 15? 15? But yeah, it's got lots of great adult material, goes in depth, and I like the fact, and I really get into the character because I appreciate, she's gonna die in 5 days. She's doing as much, and then something really else really bad happens, and she's fighting it constantly, and it's a battle to survive. Yeah, it's a battle to survive, and I love this film, and that's why it's my number one.
I need to rewatch it, clearly.
Yeah,
it didn't leave the same impression on me, but I appreciate your love for it. I really do.
Well, I put it this way: Sadako is definitely a creation that's just filled with nightmares.
Yeah.
Each to their own.
Well, it's made an impact on Japanese and American cinema.
Well, in terms of horror, this was probably Sadako is probably one of the most iconic things to come out of Japan since Godzilla.
Coming from you, that's about as high a praise as you can get. The Godzilla award.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, number one, Ring.
Cool. My number one came out in 1974. It was directed by Tobe Hooper, and it is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think this is a criminally underrated film by many people. Often sort of dismissed as just your generic slasher film from the late 70s. The beauty of this film is in the execution of its atmosphere and its setting. It's, again, got that 70s style, very eerie, very quiet, very slow-paced. It's based loosely on the exploits of the sickest man I've ever heard about, Ed Gein. Like many of the best horror films are, apparently. It's just about this group of 4 teenage backpackers, and bad stuff happens. They all get horribly killed. But just like Saw, you don't actually see anything. That's the beauty of it. There isn't any gore in this film at all. There's horrific images, and you see a guy, you see one of the characters, Franklin, getting eviscerated in his wheelchair with a chainsaw, but you don't actually see it. It's all heavily implied. You see the blood on Leatherface's apron, but you don't actually see it happen. It's just so well done. This is the tensest film, especially if you've never seen this before, that I've ever seen. It's so tense. And the atmosphere is just dripping with it. The whole way through the film, from beginning to end, it's an unrelenting, and that is the word I would use to describe not only Leatherface, but this film as a whole. It's absolutely unrelenting. It's horrifying. You can picture yourself in this situation. You can picture yourself trying to desperately run away from this menace that is unstoppable, and the sound of the chainsaw in the background whirling around, and the relief you feel when you get to the end of the film, the sense of serenity you feel after enduring this film as well. I really like the sentiments of English film critic Mark Kermode that he has about this film, about that cleansing feeling, because I've not been able to describe it until I had heard his review, and I have to agree that this film is cleansing. And if you ask someone, whenever someone asks me, why do you watch and like horror films? I would say I use Texas Chainsaw Massacre as my example, because it's something horrifying. You would never want to be in this situation, and you would definitely never want to be the one enacting these atrocities, but you get to experience it. Nothing else in life, hopefully, is going to make you feel the same way. And any problems you have in your life are going to be pretty diminished by this experience. And it is just a perfect way. You forget yoga, watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you will feel a sense of relief and joy, and you will sleep damn well the following night. It's a great film, and it's my favourite pure horror film. I don't think it gets enough love or recognition. It's important, it's been remade countless times, and it is bloody brilliant. We both absolutely adore horror films. We really do. We love watching some of these terrible ones with shitty special effects, shitty gore effects. We love some of the high concept, thriller type horror films. We love zombie flicks. We love all sorts. We have seen hundreds of these bloody things, but none of them have given me quite the same feeling of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the way you spoke about The Ring, I feel it's the same way I feel about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So there we go. Those are our top horror films of all time. All these lists are obviously subjective, but maybe this is based on your own personal fears. I don't know. I don't know what makes people like certain films. But let's get to honourable mentions. Well, what are your
a couple of honourable I can't say honourable. A couple of honourable mentions. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Great creature feature. Laid the groundwork for Jaws and the Predator. Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it's really
iconic.
Well done.
It is iconic.
I think a lot of it is really well done.
I mean, people have dressed up as Freddy for Halloween since it came out quite consistently.
Jaws as well, that's another brilliant film. Dawn of the Dead.
Okay.
George Romero's zombie film.
Not the remake.
No. George Romero.
Okay.
And then there's Frankenstein as well.
Frankenstein?
Yeah. Frankenstein.
Which one?
30s.
Oh,
Universal classic.
Boris Karloff,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
It's
No
alive.
Evil Dead?
No Evil Dead, yeah.
He loves Evil Dead.
I love Evil Dead.
So I'm quite shocked by
Missed
that.
it out for now.
So my honourable mentions, Jaws has been said already. Halloween, I mean, can't get more classic than John Carpenter's Halloween. Martyrs, I have never been more shell-shocked by a film than Martyrs. I actually was physically depressed watching that film for about 2 weeks. If you have any sliver of a soul, don't watch it, because you will kill a part of yourself watching that film. No exaggeration. Yeah, I don't recommend it for anyone, but it's a good film. Horror of Dracula, or just Dracula, that's the Hammer horror starring Christopher Lee, the late great Christopher Lee.
Oh yeah.
What a legend. Final Destination 2 is my teenage horror film of choice, and I include it just because as a teenager, the simple idea again of trying to escape death and not being able to is just it's so well executed. It is bad in places, but in a lovable kind of way. Yeah. I also want to make a special shout out for two of my friends, Child's Play. I don't really... Child's Play,
Chucky,
featuring Chucky. I'm mentioning this for you, George, and The Shining I'm mentioning for a couple of my friends as well, because they love The Shining. I don't understand it. Watch our movie trial and you'll find out why. But it's beloved, so there we go. Those are our greatest horror films of all time. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. And I hope that you explore horror. I'm going to be exploring horror more on the channel in the near future. I've got a couple of projects that I'm working on that could be of interest. I want to thank my guest, Will, Godzilla fan. Cheers for coming.
To do it now.
Yeah, I know you love horror, so
yeah,
we've been waiting.
Well, in my honourable mentions, it was pointless doing because I could have named any number of one, as you said, Evil Dead, but it was just whatever came to mind first. So
yeah, fair enough.
Bang a few out.
Yeah, I mean, this is a genre that we both love as a whole, and I really do want to bring more horror, action, and sci-fi to the Movie Trialers channel. Yeah, I can talk about horror all day. In fact, we may do that.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, so please subscribe if you haven't already, because how are you going to keep up with the latest videos if you don't? I've been Smart Alec. We are the Movie Trialers. Goodbye for now, and until next time.
Sorry.